Hey everybody, welcome to today's lesson. It's all about the bass, walking bass lines. Let's get started. Good morning, everybody.
Evening.
Thanks for joining in on this special workshop series. It's been coming up a lot, like, oh, can you talk about walking bass lines? And of course, the topic of chord substitutions always come up. So I figured, why not kind of combine them? Some solo guitar playing with chord substitutions with walking bass lines. It's not even necessarily walking bass line, but bass line construction, bass line movement. And I'll be talking more about that because it's not always necessarily walking quarter notes even. So, but the main goal with this workshop, as I was kind of thinking where I wanted to begin with all of this material, the main goal is to read charts, be able to come up with bass line construction, interesting bass lines, and maybe hip up the changes a little bit, both with substitutions and even just your choice of chord voicings. When you first looked at the PDFs that I sent out, were you like, what is this? Or like, oh, I see what's going on, or I'm just kind of curious. Was it more like, whoa, what is all this stuff? Or like, hey, I can see the logic behind this. You know, I don't want to scare anyone with it. I mean, I think it can be overwhelming, and many of you know that I try to offer a lot of materials so that, you know, I guess I'll say the beginner can grasp the concepts, but then also the more advanced player can, you know, help kind of move on forward with their playing. So I'm trying to please everybody at all levels. And as we get into applications more, you'll kind of see like, oh, I'm just going to stick to this approach. Or, oh, I'm going to try to do this arpeggio bass line. So it'll be kind of up to you. Again, you know, this is a workshop format, and I kind of like that. I try to present a lot of different options. So that being said, I'm open to any questions before we kind of just start hitting some of the basic concepts. I know many of you have done this with me many times. I hope it's a good review, but I also hope that maybe you discover something new as we work through this routine. I'm going to try to, again, cover a lot of different things from different levels as well, beginning to more advanced. Because, you know, again, it's all the basics are so important just to understand this. So I do want to start with what I call the grip chord routine. And I know many of you have done this with me. That's good. And then I want to talk just maybe about some extended or altered chords, but that will kind of come up as we play through some of the examples. And I'm not going to play everything that's written on the sheets, of course. And that's why I said I wrote probably a lot of stuff, maybe more than necessary. And I might add some things. I might not play it exactly on the worksheet. Again, I'm going to have to look at it here with you. I don't have it memorized or anything like that. So, but these are just examples and hopefully demonstrations for you. And you all have your instruments. And also I want to make sure that you adapt this material to your needs. So for example, if you're like, that chord shape just does not work for me, that's okay. You don't have to do a C6-9. You could just do a 3-note shape. Okay, and I didn't quite demonstrate the 3-note shape concept on this, but I will go ahead and talk about that because you're gonna see that used quite a bit for comping, especially our 3-note voicings. But this, I wanted to start with 4-note shapes, the fuller chord voicings. And we can always turn them into 3-note shapes. And I recommend, and I actually use that quite a bit. Okay, so here we go. Grip chord routine. I hope you all know this and can do this with me because we're gonna primarily today use these grip shapes. And the grip shapes, Joe Pass, you all know Joe Pass, I hope so. One of the great solo jazz guitar player. Please check out his virtuoso, guitar. albums, CDs, albums, tapes, whatever you have it on. And then check out his duo recordings, especially with Ella Fitzgerald. Beautiful, beautiful comping, walking bass lines, all that stuff. Just incredible. And what I love about Joe Pass is that it wasn't over technical. It was very musical. So that's one of the favorite aspects. It's not all about the technique. Okay, so that being said, he calls these kind of grab shapes, and I realized that term had stuck with me, and I call these grip shapes. So we're gonna start with the root on the 6th string, and just please go ahead and do this with me. I know many of you have done this. G major 7, and we're gonna start with just all the 7th chords. G major 7, okay, 1, 7, 3, and the 5. And yes, it's kind of expected that you do know your formulas. You'll memorize these to where you probably won't think about it. But when you turn it into dominant, you flat the 7. Now, just a moment about fingering. I often do this, but sometimes, especially when I'm finger picking, I just bar and I do this. This is a good trick. So you don't necessarily have to get all 4 fingers on there. You can try just barring. And you can get these little bluesy hammer-ons. And this is just a G7. I know on the sheet there, you'll see it and it'll look like this shape. 1, flat 7, 3, 5. But again, when you're actually playing it, you might end up just doing this. And just bar across, like a bar chord. That's G7. But again, we want this. Or just this. The only difference was fingering. I'm still plucking the same 4 notes. And I find that I like to do the hammer-on a lot. That's the flat 3 to the major 3, so it's kind of that bluesy lick. So again, this is a word on fingering. You're gonna mess around and not always do it the same way. And I think that's important to find what works best in context, what works best for you. I find myself doing some really interesting things, especially when I'm working out a solo guitar arrangement. And that's really to serve the melody that I have to refinger the chord shape that I normally would not do. But I learn a lot from doing that. Okay, I'm talking a lot about that, but that's okay. Minor 7, same thing. You might do minor 7 like this and get all 4 fingers in there. I do this quite a bit. I'm not strumming all 6 strings. I'm only plucking 6, 4, 3, and 2. And the formula for that is 1, flatted 7, flat 3, and the 5th. I always like to move around parallel when I'm practicing. Just that one shape, I know, just barring across, but again, that takes a little bit of strength there for barring, but you may do this. But again, you might find when you're doing a solo guitar, you might run a little scale lick. And that's really handy shape. I'm just running a little scale. We'll talk about that as well. Some chords with scales, etc. As probably toward the end when I start to add some licks in beyond the basics. Okay, so now minor 7, flat 5. The only alternate fingering that I would do with the 6th string root on G minor 7, flat 5, aka G half diminished, on the chart you might see a circle with a line dash through it there saying it's a half diminished and not fully diminished. The refingering that I would do is just with my thumb instead of this. So just experiment. Sometimes you'll have to use your thumb. Maybe you want a little lick. But primarily I'm using this fingering. Okay, good. The last one for the 7th chords is G dim 7, G fully diminished 7, and that's a double flat 7. I often think of it as a 6th degree. So basically we take that minor 7 flat 5 chord that we were just on, and then we take this, and we flat it to the 6th degree, or again, theoretically, it should be called a double flat 7, but I like to often think of it as a 6 chord. With that in mind now, let's go ahead and play G major 6. 6 chords are used, of course, a lot in jazz, especially early jazz, but you're going to use this quite a bit. So notice the 6 degrees stayed from that diminished, by the way. See, I'm calling it a 6, G major 6, G minor 6, G diminished 7. But again, notice that E note here, the 6, double flat 7. So I almost, again, treat the diminished like it's a 6 chord in my head. So major 6, minor 6, diminished 7. So I'm just kind of showing you maybe a little practice routine. Major 7, dominant 7, minor 7, minor 7 flat 5, diminished 7, major 6, minor 6. And that's just good to be able to do. You know, you see the chart says B flat minor 6, bam, C diminished 7, C sharp minor 7. So one other aspect, of course, which is very important, as you'll notice, you got to know your bass notes, especially for this course. You have to know your notes on the 6th and the 5th string, especially. Just, you know, by reading charts and being a bass player, that's the best way to learn. Just go through a lot of songs and just kind of read. Because you don't want to just memorize a song. You want to say A, D, G, C, F sharp, B, E. You know, just to know where you're going. And then you put the shape to it. A minor, D7, G major 7, C major 9, whatever chords you want. So I don't want to neglect that, but I'm hoping that you all know your bass notes really well on the 6th and the 5th string. Good. Yeah, that's definitely very, very important. And then those grip shapes, these grab chords here. Okay, good. So with that in mind, one other good exercise that I think is nice, and many of you know this again from my Bossa Nova class as well, major 7 to major 6. Minor 7 to minor 6. So minor 7, minor 6. And one interesting thing is about the finger, just even think about this, the fingering. See how I had to lift up from doing this shape to this? Oh, here's another minor 7 fingering. I have 3 of them that I like to do. This one with the bar here on that B flat triad, and then this one. So again, I'm not ever 100% sure which one I'm going to use until it's in context. But for this example, check if I ask you all to do G minor 7 to G minor 6 and make it as clean as possible, I would probably assume you would do this. You know, you want as little movement as possible. I know you can see these 2 fingers toggling back and forth, but you want it super clean sounding. So in this case, these 2 fingers are staying down. So I would probably, to me, it would not be as clean to do this. That's too much movement too. But again, sometimes you just do what you need to do. But think about those type of things. 5th string root, C major 7. Notice the formula changes. 1, 5, 7, 3. It's written there on that chord sheet. 1, 5, 7, 3. 1, 5, 7, 3. To make it dominant, you want to flat the 7. To make it minor 7, you want to flat the 3rd. And I'm going to show some alternate fingerings in a second. To make it minor 7 flat 5, aka half dim, you got to flat the 5th. Right here, even with fingering, you could bar, like this little half bar, or you could get all 4 fingers in there. I would do this if I needed to grab this note. And I am going to show a few little licks, of course, later on. There's even just things like that, adding in and scale tone above or below. Just these sound really cool. So that's C half dim. And then finally C fully dim. You take that flat 7 and go to a 6. double flat 7, and then major 7, dominant, minor 7, minor 7 flat 5, fully dim. Okay, just be able to, make it sound good and be able to do that. Major 7, major 6. So where's that 6 at? Notice how I got to the 6. I went from the 7, flat 7, to the 6. And then you have to get everything else back on. This is tricky. This is a big stretch. But I love this voicing. It's beautiful. And it works well. Again, I'm kind of demonstrating in bossa style. I'm not doing my bossa workshop, so I got to get a little bossa in here. Major 7 to major 6. Just like I demonstrated on the 6-string root, major 7, major 6. The 7 to the 6 movement is a beautiful voice leading that's often not written in the chart, but when you hear players and pros, play, they're doing that 7 to the 6 movements from bossa nova to swing, just. So I add that in. Minor 7, minor 6. And this is tricky. I know this fingering for a lot of people, this is a hard chord to grab, that C minor 6. Notice the minor 7, but then you have to refinger all of this. And that's C minor 6. Just so minor 7, and then you got flat the 7 to the 6. Okay, and this is where I kind of recommend sometimes if that's impossible, nothing's impossible, but to go here, to go right to the C minor 6 over here on the 6-string root as just a quick cheat thing to do. Minor 7, minor 6. But I'm only doing it as a 3-note shape here, meaning I'm omitting the 2nd string. I'm just omitting that note, so it sounds like this. Minor 7, minor 6. Otherwise it'd be minor 7, minor 6. Okay. Just a few alternate shapes here. I like the C minor 7 like this quite often as well. This is doubling the 3rd and omitting the 5th. This is on there, it says alternate minor 7. I can yell out the tab for you too if you need. 3, 1, 3, and then 4. 1, flat 3, flat 7, and then flat 3 again. There's no 5th. But this is used quite often. I know, and it's sometimes, again, you're going to discover when you're walking some bass lines, you're going to be like, oh, I like this shape a lot when I go to the 13. So it's just really because of particular fingerings, actually, that work well for us. That chart. C6 like this is great. You have the doubling of the root and the octave, and then the E and the A. So you have 1, 3, 6, 8. But again, this is, in a lot of people, you'll see this in books quite often, a C6. It sounds great for swing. But it's not a true C6 chord, meaning it doesn't have all 4 notes in there. So what is it missing? The 5, thank you all. The 5th degree, G. And do you all know what this chord really is? It's an A minor chord with the C double, the 3rd double. But it definitely doesn't sound minor. And this is just one of the magics of music, is that even though it's a minor chord with a double 3rd, it does not sound minery or dark. It sounds brighter, if anything. What a lot of rhythm players do, or even for bass line, is put the 5th in the bass. It fattens it up quite a bit. So I'm just putting the G in the bass with my pinky here. So, and you can chunk that out like this. If you want a lower, deeper sound, this. Put the G in the bass. And of course, if we're fingerstyle and walking bass, and you put the 5th in the bass, it's really quite fascinating. Again, that the root or the 5th can be exchanged for each other. Or of course, if you're doing like a bossa, you might go 1, 5, and that goes. That's the same for swing. 2 feel. there's a C6-9, that was the other special chord, but let's not talk about extended chords. Extended chords meaning nines, or altered chords meaning sharp 5, flat 9, sharp 9. We're not going to worry about that too much, even though you're going to see that in the examples. Just again, that's me just spicing things up. I will talk about how and when you can do that. But I was kind of being a little bit more general about just throwing that stuff in. Any questions on that chord routine? I know that's a lot of talk on that, but it's just so important. We had to make sure we get through that and everybody get these chord shapes down. Okay, good. Let's move on. Finally, 1, 6, 2, 5. Let's talk about the most important chord study. 1, 6, 2, 5. 1, 6, 2, 5, 1. Many of you know that 1, 6, 2, 5 is the most common turnaround, but not only that is it in jazz, but not only that, it's also used as the foundation for many songs. And maybe just examine the bass line. G, E flat to the E. So it's below, above, above, above. Do I like above more? Maybe I do, kind of depending on. Hold the chord shape.